Hi. I was listening to an AVFM show the other night, and Dean had made a comment that he thought it was nerdy, but he happened to like this radio show, and I happen to like the same radio show. So, got me to thinking. I had always thought in my mind there were a couple of episodes that I really thought, well, more than a couple that I thought were really interesting and funny, but there were two in particular that really were like really gender related, big time. And I'm going to excerpt them for you tonight, and I'm just going to make some comments on it. Well, the first one up is called Testosterone, and the premise of the show was, I believe, to test the people involved with the show and to see if, using their research, whether or not that would jibe with their predictions as to who had more or less testosterone, people that they knew that they worked with. Very interesting research and experiments. My thought is that what really grabbed me was when you hear some of the reactions of people that were put under these experiments. I just had to shake my head. Look, this is what men have been saying for centuries, for time immemorial. This is how men feel about certain things. This is how we are. Does testosterone cause this? To some extent it does. My saying is walk a mile in his shoes. So listening to this episode, man, it's just amazing. Enjoy.
I first came across the women's room when I was digging through my parents' bookshelves looking for porn. Books with naughty parts in them. Like Fear of Flying, and so I picked it up and I read it.
Because the word women was in the title.
In lipstick, probably, or maybe not. Yes. It's incredibly polemical. Like it describes basically a group of women sort of going from the 50s through the 60s. And they sort of all suffer at the hands of the various men in their lives. And, there's constantly, there's like, women are slowly being driven crazy by their husbands' incessant criticism, or they're being called ugly after they get mastectomies, or they're being stifled by their husband's emotional shallowness.
And I noticed you happen to have brought into the studio with you today a copy of The Women's Room.
Yeah, well, I recently reread it just to see. For example, I sort of bookmarked a couple of these things. On page 198, the narrator comes in and she says, you think I hate men. I guess I do. And then a little bit further down, she says, my feelings about men are the result of my experience. I have little sympathy for them. Like a Jew just released from Dachau, I watched the handsome young Nazi soldier fall writhing to the ground with a bullet in his stomach. And I look briefly and walk on. I don't even need to shrug. I simply don't care. And then a little bit later, my hatred is learned from experience. That is not prejudice. I wish it were prejudice. Then, perhaps, I could unlearn it. There's not very much pornographic about that. It's an incredibly strange thing to read this book at that age, because at that age, I felt like, there's one other woman who sort of comes into play at this point, and that's I probably shouldn't say her name. Let's just call her Kelly. And she was like in 8th grade with me, and she sat 2 rows away from me, and I remember one time like sitting in homeroom with her and seeing like like her button-down shirt was open a little bit, and I could catch the bare sliver of her little training bra, and it was like perhaps the most desire I've ever felt in my life, maybe. I mean, it was like all consuming, and I couldn't concentrate for the rest of the day. I remember it to this day. And so at the time I was reading this book, I felt like, oh my God, this is like I could see myself becoming the people that she was describing, the men she was describing. And it was really terrifying. my testosterone and how it affects me and how I react to it, I think about on a daily basis all the time. It often feels like there's something in my body giving me instructions that I probably shouldn't follow.
Okay, which brings us to today's program. A while back, Alex tried to convince all of us who work on the radio show that we should do an entire program about testosterone. And I have to say, none of us were really buying it, especially the women, who found the subject dull, even though, as Alex tried to point out to them, women have testosterone, and it affects them pretty much exactly the same way that it affects men. I think all of us were fearing a kind of men are from Mars, women are from Venus sort of thing. How hormones make men be all aggressive and women all non-aggressive in very stereotyped ways, which all seem kind of reductionistic and dumbheaded. And then Alex started reading and calling people. And one of the people that he called was this guy who wrote an article for GQ magazine about what happened to him when, because of medical reasons, he stopped producing testosterone. And for 4 months, he lived without testosterone before they caught the problem. And the way he described living without testosterone was really incredible.
Everything that I identify as being me, my ambition, my interest in things, my sense of humor, the inflection in my voice. I mean, the quality of my speech even changed in the time that I was without a lot of the hormone. So, yes, the introduction of testosterone returned everything. There were things that I find offensive about my own personality that were disconnected then, and it was nice to be without them. Envy, the desire to judge itself, I approached people with a humility that I had never displayed before. I grew up in a culture, like all of us, that divides the soul from the body, and that is your singleness, that is your uniqueness, and nothing can touch that. And then I go through this experience where I have small amounts of a bodily chemical removed and then reintroduced, and it changes everything I know as myself. And it violates the sanctity of that understanding that who you are exists independent of any other forces in the universe, and that's humbling, and it's terrifying.
I think when it comes to this stuff, most of us do not know what to believe. We're caught between thinking that our hormones and body chemistry can determine so much about our personalities, and wanting to believe that they don't. And so, today on our program, we bring you 4 stories exploring that question. How much does testosterone determine? Act 1 of our show, Life at Zero, in which we hear about what it means to lose all your testosterone. Act 2, Infinite Gent. A woman gets pumped up with several times the testosterone that most men have, and describes some surprising changes. Act 1, Life at Zero. Testosterone is the hormone of desire. And by that I don't mean sexual desire. I mean desire, period. In this act, we continue with Alex's interview with that magazine writer from GQ. He wrote about his experiences with testosterone anonymously.
When you have no testosterone, you have no desire. And when you have no desire, you don't have any content in your mind. You don't think about anything.
And during those months, how were you behaving? What was different?
It wasn't that I was behaving, it was that I was not behaving at all. I was, when I was awake, literally sitting in bed and staring at the wall with neither interest nor disinterest for 3-4 hours at a time. If you'd had a camera in the room, you would have thought I was comatose. I would go out, I would buy some groceries early in the morning, and that would be it. My day had no content. I had no interest in even watching TV, much less reading the newspaper or a book. Food. I didn't want my food to taste good or interesting. And when you're blessed with that lack of desire, you can eat a loaf of Wonder Bread with mayonnaise, and that will be your day. And, I only saw my girlfriend on weekends since she was living in New York and I was living in Philly. So I could get away with it 5 days at a time. And, needless to say, there was absolutely no desire. People who are deprived of testosterone don't become Spock-like and, incredibly rational.
Mm-hmm.
They become nonsensical because they're unable to distinguish between what is and isn't interesting and what is worth noting and what isn't.
Describe your thoughts on your morning walk in this state.
It's very quiet at 5:30, 6:30 in the morning. And I would see, a brick in a wall, and I would think, a brick in a wall. I would see a pigeon and think, a pigeon. It's the most literal possible understanding of the world.
So in this time when you're without testosterone, you're walking down the street, you're just sort of ticking things off, just making these very simple observations.
Like a grocery list.
Yeah, like a grocery list, exactly. You also have a thought that comes to you all the time, right?
Yes.
Talk about that.
Which is a very strange sounding thing, which is, that is beautiful. Everything I saw, I thought, that is beautiful, which is odd sounding, I know, because that sounds like the judgment of a person with passion.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the exact opposite. It was thought, and sometimes even said, with complete dispassion, with objectivity.
Uh-huh.
And you see, I was looking at absolutely everything, the most mundane sight in the world, a weed in the sidewalk, and thinking, oh, that's beautiful. The surgery scars on people's knees, the bolts in the hubcaps of cars, all of it just seemed to have purpose. And it was like, oh, that's beautiful.
It's so staggering that was sort of, that is the core sort of thought that you were left with. Like, if you see things factually, you could have just as easily settled on, monstrous or disgusting. And so it's interesting to me that the adjective your brain, and what was left of your personality chose to ascribe to everything is beautiful. Why do you think that is?
I mean, when I think about that question, the issue of God comes into the equation for me. In a way, being without testosterone brought me closer to God, but not in the afternoon talk show sense of being, more humane, but actually thinking like God. And of course, I don't mean thinking as God, but I meant thinking like God in an aping, superficial kind of way. He sees things as they really are. He sees you as you really are. And I had this omniscient sense when I was without testosterone that I was seeing through the skin of things, that I was seeing things as they really were. And that the objective conclusion, not the judgmental one, but the objective conclusion was, they are beautiful. Everything is beautiful, from the bugs to the cracks in the sidewalk to the faces of other people. And it was automatic. Perhaps to see things objectively is to see them, all of them, as beautiful. But in the most, you have to understand that the thought was expressed in the most flat-lying, boring way possible. Oh yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. You would think that this would be a terrible thing, a terrible state to be in, and for most people it is. But it was weirdly pleasant. And There is a certain appeal, an impossible appeal, to that Rip Van Winkle existence of being without testosterone. You just have to remember that it doesn't matter if you have nothing, if you want nothing. It's very tricky to get inside that mindset. In some ways, it's difficult for me to even remember it now, but it had its allure.
Well, I can understand that, because desire often feels like a burden. Like, it
Yeah.
often feels like if I just didn't want that thing, not having it wouldn't be so painful.
There you go.
Yeah.
All that wanting.
Act 2, Infinite Gent. Well, we just heard from somebody whose testosterone dropped to nothing. Now we have the story of someone whose level got a huge boost. Griffin Hansberry was born female, but 7 years ago, after college, Griffin took action to become a man. Now he's had top surgery, but not bottom. He does not intend to get that. And he told this story of what it was like to experience the massive increase in testosterone that accompanies this change. He talked with our producer, Alex Bloomberg, a warning to listeners that they talk about looking at women and wanting sex during this interview.
I went to Bryn Mawr College, which is a women's college, and chose a women's college because I strongly identified as a woman at the time, as a feminist, and as a dyke. I had my leather biker jacket and my big leather belt and my black T-shirts and my Doc Marten boots, my combat boots.
Uh-huh.
And that felt pretty comfortable for a while. And then my sophomore year in college, I was lying in bed with my girlfriend. I don't know if we were talking or what it was, and it just sort of hit me like a bolt of lightning, as they say. And I just knew that I had to change my body. So I started doing the research on it, and the only way to do that was to take testosterone. My first injection was a pretty large one of 2 cc's of 200 milligram strength depot testosterone, which is a fairly high amount. Just to give you a sense of how much that is, the average amount of testosterone in an average male body is between 300 and 1,000 nanograms per deciliter of blood. Mm-hmm. After that shot, and after an average shot, my testosterone levels go up to over 2,000 nanograms per deciliter, so that I have the testosterone of 2 high testosterone men in my body at once.
You have the testosterone of 2 linebackers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's a lot. It's a lot of tea. And what's amazing about it is how instantaneous it is, that it happens within a few days, really. The world just, changes.
What were some of the changes that you didn't expect?
The most overwhelming feeling is the incredible increase in libido and change in the way that I perceived women and the way I thought about sex. Before testosterone, I would be riding the subway, which is the traditional hotbed of lust in the city. And I would see a woman on the subway, and I would think, she's attractive. I'd like to meet her. What's that book she's reading? I could talk to her. This is what I would say. There would be a narrative. There would be this stream of language. It would be very verbal. After testosterone, there was no narrative. There was no language whatsoever. It was just I would see a woman who was attractive or not attractive. She might have an attractive quality, nice ankles or something, and the rest of her would be fairly unappealing to me. But that was enough to basically just flood my mind with aggressive pornographic images, just one after another. It was like being in a pornographic movie house, in my mind, and I couldn't turn it off. I mean, I could not turn it off. Everything I looked at, everything I touched turned to sex. I was an editorial assistant, and I would be standing at the Xerox machine, and this big, shuddering, warm, inanimate object would just drive me crazy. It was very, very erotic to me.
The Xerox machine.
The Xerox machine, or a car. I remember walking up Fifth Avenue one day, And this red convertible went by. It was a Mustang, and I remember just getting this jolt in my pants, this very physical, visceral, sexual reaction to seeing a red convertible.
What did you do with that? I mean, what did you think?
Well, I felt like a monster a lot of the time, and it made me understand men. It made me understand adolescent boys a lot. Suddenly, hair is sprouting, and I'm turning into this beast, and I would really kind of berate myself for it. I remember walking up Fifth Avenue, and there was a woman walking in front of me, and she was wearing this little skirt and this little top, and I was looking at her ass, and I kept saying to myself, "Don't look at it, don't look at it," and I kept looking at it, and I walked past her, and this voice in my head kept saying, "Turn around to look at her breasts, turn around, turn around, turn around," and my feminist female background kept saying, "Don't you dare, you pig, don't turn around." And, I fought myself for a whole block, and then I turned around and checked her out. And before, it was cool. When I would do a poetry reading, I would get up and I would read these poems about, women on the street. And I was a butch dyke, and that was very, very cutting edge, and that was very sexy and raw. And now I'm just a jerk, So I do feel like I've lost this edge, this nice sort of avant-garde kind of. And I've gotten into a lot of arguments with women friends, coworkers who did not know about my past as a female. I call myself a post-feminist, and I had a woman say, "You're not a post-feminist, you're a misogynist." And I said, that's impossible. I can't be a misogynist. And I couldn't explain to her, how I had come to this point in my life. And to her, I was just a misogynist. And that's unfortunate, because it's a lot more complicated than that.
I'll say. Wow. Testosterone didn't just turn you into a man, it turned you into Rush Limbaugh.
I know. I was not expecting. So I had to relearn how to talk to women. And I had to learn how to rephrase things, how to hold my tongue on certain things. And I'm not very good at it, so I get in trouble.
That is so fascinating that because I mean, as a man, I think from the time I went through puberty, I feel like that's something that I've been learning to do, is in a certain way, is just figure out like how to say things without getting myself in trouble.
Right. Yeah.
It's like I would not have thought that you would have had that problem.
Mm-hmm, right. Because I should know better or something.
Are there other ways that you like, other than the visual and other than the libidinal, are there other ways that you feel like testosterone has altered the way you feel or perceive?
Something that happened after I started taking testosterone, I became interested in science. I was never interested in science before.
No way. Come on. Are you serious?
I'm serious. Now,
You're just setting us back 100 years, sir.
I know I am. I know. I mean, again, I have to have this caveat in here. I cannot say it was the testosterone. All I can say is that this interest happened after T. There's BT and AT, and this was definitely after T. And I became interested in science. I found myself understanding physics in a way I never had before. It's true.
Wow.
I did.
How about in the way you feel things and in the way you perceive of your feelings? Is there any change there?
I have a hard time crying. Before testosterone, it was great to if I was frustrated, angry, or sad, have a good cry, you'd feel better afterwards. And I do wonder if there isn't a chemical component behind it, because I now have a hard time doing it, and it's very frustrating. And what I will do is, when I feel that pressure build up, I'll go into my room, I'll close the door, and force myself. I have to force myself to cry. And the quality of the crying is different than the quality of the crying was before tea. It's very dry. I find myself sort of moaning and sobbing, but with very little tears.
You've answered a lot of questions for us today. And reinforced a lot of stereotypes that we've almost
I
dispelled
know.
with.
I know I have. I know it.
Well, the second show up is about a girls-oriented game show. The producers and the creators behind the show, you'll see their explanation, but basically they wanted to prove that girls are just as smart and capable and interested in things as boys, and the so-called self-esteem gap is a myth, and let's show the world that girls are doing it too, can do it. Very related to other things in the men's human rights movement. What about the push for STEM, women in the STEM fields? Why the push for it, I don't know. That's also related to Gamergate. Some women like to play games. Some women like to design games. But I don't know if that's a majority of women. Look, I'll say this. There are some things that girls and women like to do and pursue. There are some things that girls and women don't like and don't pursue. I think that's basically proven by the STEM field research. Generally, women go towards the softer sciences. That's their choices, overwhelmingly. No one's pushing them to go anywhere, okay? That's what shows the failure in this girls' game show thing, where you have either an agenda or you have a preset answer, and you want to try to find out how we get to that answer. Let's get to that answer. Maybe that answer is wrong. So people like Anita Sarkeesian and these people who are saying that girls are being kept out of writing games and making money writing games and designing games, I just don't see it. The field is open. The gaming field is open. The STEM research fields are open to women and girls. Whether or not they choose to pursue these things, that is their choice. Some do, many don't. This is funny. As much as us in the men's human rights movement, we want equality of opportunity, of course, and equality under the law. Now, beyond that, people are free to choose whatever they want to do. You know, as long as they're free legally to do it, and no one stops them. But it's funny. But we do have tendencies, men and women. There's no doubt about it. It's funny. I was watching actual television commercial showing a woman who had a dream. Her dream was shoes. Shoes flying down from the sky. And she was flying with them. She was trying to gather them all. Man, I guess that's probably a reality for many women. They love shoes. To me, that's, I wouldn't say silly. I mean, it's just not something that I would pursue. But, you know, it's funny because I was explaining to my wife the other day about how I was on YouTube, and I happened to see from one of the computer manufacturers, Asus, is that how you say it? How to build your own, like, gaming rig. See, I build my own computers. I just love that kind of stuff. And to see a video made of someone doing what I love to do, but with like the ultimate high-end components that I will probably never use, it was just like that woman with the shoes. It was like, man, that is so cool. I wish I could do that. I mean, when I do actually build my own computers, I'm sad when it's done. I just love it. Seems silly, right, to some people? But anyway, so enjoy this girls' game show episode of this radio program. It's hilarious. You'll love it. Take care.
Act 3, Girls in Need of Safer Time. Robin Epstein remembers the ad. There was a hospital nursery full of babies, and one baby girl tosses off her pink knit cap. It lands on the floor. This inspires other little baby girls to do the same. Pink hats come flying off of heads. Finally, the first little baby girl raises her little baby fist into the air as Helen Reddy sings I Am Woman.
I am woman, hear me roar, in numbers too big to ignore.
Please don't stand up in your cars. This is an ad for the Oxygen Network, all women's network, just about to go on the air, February 2nd, 2000, which Robin found completely thrilling.
It was this really wonderful moment of, here we go. It sort of heralded our arrival and the birth of the network and the excitement behind it. And it felt like it was something really to cheer for.
Robin had just gotten a job on a brand new show on this brand new network. There's a quiz show for teenage girls called Clued In. Robin was going to write all the questions in the quiz. And she did this with a real sense of mission.
It just seemed like a fantastic idea for a show to me, which was to get teenage girls on a quiz show and to show the world really how smart they were.
Show the world and show other teenage girls?
Absolutely. And I wanted to show that these were the girls that you should be looking up to, that there were, in fact, role models that you weren't seeing.
Right, and they walk among us. They're everyday girls.
That's right.
Yeah. Did you know about these studies at the time that I think the researcher was named Gilligan?
Yeah, Carol Gilligan, absolutely. Yes, I think it was basically until the age of 11 or so.
Mm-hmm.
Girls in class, they are constantly raising their hands. It's important that they look smart. They want to impress their teachers. And so they're constantly all about giving the right answer and reading and researching and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's something that happens to these girls at like age 12 or 13 where it inverts. And suddenly appearing smart is not important at all for the majority of them.
And when you began this show, did you know about that research and did you believe it?
I absolutely knew about the research. I didn't buy it. I thought, no way. I mean, sort of based on my own experiences in school. I was in a public school, but a lot of my friends were really smart girls. And we were all sort of, very pleased with, being high achievers and doing all this stuff. And I just thought, that research is a crock. Where was this woman going? What schools? How many girls did she actually interview?
Welcome back. I'm Ian Kessler, and it's time to get clued in.
And just describe what the early shows were like. What kinds of questions there were, how people would respond.
Right. So in the early shows, we would ask a range of questions. And I thought that there was a baseline of things that clued in people should be aware of and should know.
All right, here's the question. When stocks rise, it's a bull market. What animal symbolizes a market decline? Allison.
Chicken?
No. Good guess, but that was right. Janine.
A bird?
No, that's incorrect. You want to give it a shot, Jacqueline?
No.
No, you don't? You don't want to embarrass yourself? All right, it's a bear. It's a bear market. Okay, don't worry about it. You still got control.
So is that pretty typical?
So well.
Yes.
Let's see. We're gonna fill that
There
right
started to be a creeping sensation that the questions were way, way too hard. When she came out with chicken, that's where I thought, oh, okay, we have a problem.
Here we go, 500-point follow-up, same category. What losing presidential candidate lost the use of his hand in World War II? 3 seconds, Emily.
Teddy Roosevelt?
No. Anybody else want to give it a shot? Come on, no. Bob Dole. Bob Dole. Yeah, World War II.
But the girls out there not able to get answers, not able to get these answers, did you ever feel a little guilty? You know what I mean? Like you're doing them a disservice. You're making them look bad.
Oh, absolutely. Every day. It was one of these things where when they had the blank stares and they were not ringing in on their buzzers, I would sort of sit there and I just had my hand on my forehead, sort of looking down and just feeling like, what have I done? Like, I have put them in this position. It is my fault that they cannot answer, that I am, in fact, not only am I not showing that girls are smart, I have put on the air that girls are stupid.
That's really bad. And actually, Lauren, that's wrong, too, so you don't get any points. I'm sorry. All right, Jasmine, are you ready? Here's your first question.
Now this is a show on a network for women, and it's aimed at girls.
Yes.
Why is the host a guy?
Yeah, that is a great question. We actually auditioned scores of women to be hosts of the show.
Mm-hmm.
There was one girl who was possibly a good fit for the show.
And
She was not really pretty enough to be on TV.
are you serious?
Mm-hmm.
She was good, but she wasn't just pretty enough?
Yes.
Even on this like sort of pro-woman network?
Even on the We Love You for What's on the Inside network, yes.
And what did you think when you saw that go down? Did you just be like, okay, well, whatever, it's television?
We were TV people, and so and the assumption also was that if we wanted teen girls to be interested, maybe we give them a little eye candy. And the host that we chose sort of had a passing resemblance to Matt Damon. He was like a Matt Damon type.
And here's the question. What amendment gave women the right to vote?
Okay,
Kosi.
There you go, Kosi. It's all you. 8, 9, 14, 15. Come on. 8.
3 seconds.
8, 9. Say 9.
The 9th. No, wait.
She said 9th. Anybody want to
Ninth. I'm gonna guess 14th.
That's incorrect. It's the 19th Amendment.
None of us
19th
deserve the right
Amendment.
to vote because we don't know that.
That's true, exactly. So nobody gets the follow-up
None of us
question.
deserves
That's
the
it.
right
That's
to
the end of
vote.
the round.
Yes, exactly. So the girls can't answer most of the questions that you've designed for the show. What do you do?
You dumb down questions. You give them things that anyone of any age, of any mental capacity, could possibly answer.
Jesus is known as the son of whom? Fame.
God.
God, that's right. So you're up to 4,000 points. Evie, you've got 3,250. Which one do you want to go with?
All right, I'll take this spells disaster.
This spells disaster. Here's the question. Without fumbling, who can spell her first name backwards? Katie.
EITAK.
There you go. She's on the board.
Yeah. That wasn't one of my prouder moments as a question writer.
Which one would you like to go with?
I'll take sign me up, please.
Sign me up. All right. This is actually a physical challenge. We want to see who can get an autograph on their arm from the cutest boy in the audience. All right, Rachel, here you go. Here's a pen. You've got 15 seconds. Go right now. 15 seconds. Come on, let's hear for him. 15 seconds. No.
So at this point, they're running through the audience with pens. And isn't this pretty much exactly the kind of boy-crazy culture that you were trying to not encourage?
Yes. This was, it was pretty much exactly the opposite of what we were trying to show with the show. And that did kind of make me sad that, that here are these, they're the ones who are on air and who should be the role models. And it was pretty disappointing to realize that even though we were trying to find them and to show this, we were failing at it.
What would be your dream car?
I guess my dream car would be a Mustang.
A Mustang, like a new one or an old one?
Whatever. Like, probably.
And so when you got into this, your whole idea was like, okay, let's show how smart girls are. And at the end of this experience, how did you feel?
I felt girls are dumb.
Girls are dumb.
Girls are dumb.
Just listen to yourself.
I know. This experience remains one of these things that I'm not entirely sure how to explain. I do think women are smart, but the lesson of what I saw versus what I want to believe is very different.
But is it possible the girls were smart, but just not smart in a way that could be made apparent in a trivia quiz?
Yes. I just think that for a lot of it, the girls seemed much more interested in just sort of showing this really superficial side to themselves. That it was all about sort of what they looked like, and it was all about how they were presenting themselves, as opposed to what was more on the inside or what seemed like good things to achieve. And
well, I wonder if it just like in the end your mistake was you just thought more people were like you than really are, and that's kind of that's the mistake that runs the world basically.
Yeah, I mean I think that's probably the case. Probably not many other girls were spending their weekends playing Trivial Pursuit with their friends. But I no longer feel like it is mine to try and improve sort of the quality of girls. That was maybe an idealistic something that I had in my 20s. And
Because you don't think they need it, or because you think it's hopeless?
because I'm not sure it's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like not to use the word hopeless, but
Yeah.
hard, certainly. I don't know what can. I mean, I think there's just that. I mean, I think that there can be a role model per se that maybe could have this influence, but it's not a game show. Just coming up with a quick fix or a quick answer or ringing in for something at the buzzer doesn't seem like the long-term solution.
Robin Epstein in New York.